Morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to speak at this really interesting workshop, and thank you to Annalena and Vanessa for organising and for all the chairs. So this morning, I'd just like to talk very briefly about a challenge that we face in digital content, one that we don't tend to face in more physical environments, such as libraries. And this is the idea of kind of fostering serendipity as one side. So as you walk down the rows and aisles in a library, you spot things that kind of trigger interest. Because things tend to be co-located based on their relatedness to each other. And Lucy's presentation there gives a really good introduction to some of the fundamental technologies and approaches that are necessary to underpin digital archives and digital collections to foster this kind of serendipity. And reflection is a key part of this. The context for this work is the Beyond 2022 project, and this is trying to reconstitute the lost National Archive that was burned to the ground in 1922. So I'm cheating slightly. I'm not talking about necessarily born digital. I'm talking about reborn digital items, because the items that we have available to us look like this. So currently there's a team of researchers going to archives in Edinburgh, London, Belfast to find duplicate documents of those that were lost and perform a digitization process. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about. I'm really here to talk about when you've got those digitized, how do you facilitate some degree of serendipity, reflection, based on the digital trails that people leave in their inquiries in such a system. So thankfully, the people performing this work have a really good vision of what they're trying to reconstitute. You can probably just about see the date in the bottom right there. In 1919, Herbert Wood produced a guide to that archive. So we have a very clear catalogue of what we're trying to reconstitute. But imagine, put yourself in the mind of Herbert Wood, walking into the archive in 1919, and you walk into a search room like this, where you have people who understand the archive. You can ask questions of them. They will go back into the back room itself, retrieve documents for you, and they'll act as your guide, and very much the way a modern librarian does. And that's something that's often lacking in modern digital systems. So how can we facilitate this in a project like this? So there's an awful lot more detail on Beyond 2022 itself, and my colleague Kieran Wallace is going to be talking a little later at the 11:45 session, so he'll go into a little bit more of the history of this, because I want to focus a little on the digital side and the digital interaction side. So I coordinated a project a number of years ago looking at the 1641 depositions, and that project was called Cultura, and we built a virtual research environment. But what we wanted to foster as part of that was some way for users to interact and introspect and examine their activity in a system like this. And a lot of it's fundamentally predicated on what Lucy was just talking about, on entities. If you have some idea of where people are encountering entities based on what they're searching for, what they're looking at, you start to see connections, because just like the graph that Lucy showed there, things have varying degrees of separation from each other that you can utilize to highlight to users. Thank you. So you can offer various different visualizations and different aids. And for us, what was really important is to offer a variety of different modes and methods for people to engage with material, that you can guide them when necessary. So you can offer pointers to materials that may be of interest. And that's acting a little bit like a subject expert. But when they're exploring, that you can make suggestions in line. But for me, importantly, that you facilitate reflection. And reflection for us, very simplistically, and this is about 6-7 years ago, looked like this. A bag of words, varying different font sizes, various different colors, that highlighted things that they'd encountered. And this is very crude. But people could engage with those words, understand where they had cropped into their model of their engagement from, based on the interactions that they'd had, remove things that were no longer of interest, and that influenced how the system interacted with them. So it offered a very small degree of serendipity, because you could see, oh, why is that word in my model? And offered a small amount then of reflective control as to what you were doing. So when you're generating hypotheses in a virtual research environment, that you have that opportunity. So there's several different challenges that raise out that, but I don't have time to delve into them right now. But hopefully as part of the panel session, we will. So just like to thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to engaging with you all.